All right, let's dive in. Today, we are talking about the thrilling, sometimes totally shocking, and always revolutionary world of avant-garde art. We're going to look at the movements that basically ripped up the rulebook and completely changed the game for what art could even be. So let's get into it.
I mean, really think about it. It's a pretty simple question, right? But it's the engine behind everything we're about to see. What actually happens when the most creative minds look at tradition and just say, nope, not good enough anymore? Well, you get a whole century of explosive, mind-bending art.
So, before we jump headfirst into all the wild paintings and sculptures, we should probably get a handle on what this term avant-garde really means. Who exactly are these people who decide to go first?
Believe it or not, the term avant-garde is actually a military one. It refers to the advance guard, the soldiers who scout ahead into totally unknown, dangerous territory. And in the art world, it's pretty much the same idea. These are the pioneers, the risk-takers. They're so far ahead of the curve that people in their own time often find them shocking, confusing, or even offensive. They are the ultimate rule breakers.
Okay, so let's see how this whole rebellion got started. We're heading back to the dawn of the 20th century, where the first major cracks in traditional art really started to show. This is the moment when artists began to declare their independence from reality itself.
First up, Fauvism. And you gotta love this, the name literally means wild beasts. Led by the one and only Henri Matisse, these artists decided a tree doesn't have to be brown and green, the sky doesn't have to be blue. For them, color was pure emotion. When Matisse showed his woman with a hat with its totally jarring, unnatural colors, the art world was just stunned. It was a clear statement. Feeling is way more important than realism.
And then, just 2 years later, another bombshell drops. So if Fauvism was a rebellion against traditional color, Cubism, pioneered by Pablo Picasso and George Braque, was a rebellion against form itself. They basically asked, why do we have to show something from just one angle? Why not show it from all angles, all at the same time? They smashed reality into 1,000 little geometric pieces and put it back together on the canvas. It literally changed the way we see.
Now, at the same time, the world itself was changing at a dizzying pace. We're talking cars, airplanes, massive, sprawling cities, and artists felt like art needed to catch up. So the next wave of the avant-garde wasn't just about personal feelings or perception, it was about capturing the frantic, buzzing energy of this new industrial age.
Over in Italy, you had the Futurists, and these guys were obsessed with progress. Artists like Umberto Boccioni just loved the roar of a car, the blur of a speeding train. Their art is all about trying to paint that motion, that dynamic, mechanical energy. They were so intense they even wrote a manifesto saying they wanted to destroy all museums and create a whole new art for the future.
And then in Britain, you had a similar vibe with a movement called Vorticism. Led by an artist named Wyndham Lewis, they saw the modern city as this giant, swirling vortex of energy. A powerful, sometimes kind of brutal mix of humans and machines. Their work is all sharp angles, super geometric, and really captures that feeling of industrial power with this cold, mechanical precision.
But this celebration of machines and power would soon start to feel incredibly naive, because all those amazing modern inventions were about to be turned into weapons of mass destruction in the First World War. And in response, art took a huge dramatic turn, away from celebrating the modern world and instead diving headfirst into chaos, the human mind, and pure unadulterated nonsense.
And that brings us to Dada. Just look at this comparison. Dada wasn't a new style. It was an anti-art movement. It was born out of the absolute trauma of World War I. Dadaists looked at a world that had gone completely insane, with illogical, mechanized slaughter. And they figured, a society that could do that doesn't deserve beautiful, logical art. So they gave it the total opposite: absurdity, nonsense, and pure provocation.
And nothing, I mean nothing, captures that spirit more than this. In 1917, an artist named Marcel Duchamp walked into a plumbing supply store, bought a standard urinal, turned it upside down, signed a fake name on it, and called it Fountain. He then submitted it to an art show, and the art world's collective mind just exploded. Because with that one single, incredibly provocative move, Duchamp was asking a huge question. If an artist says something is art, does that make it art? He wasn't just making an object, he was attacking the entire system. He was questioning the very definition of what art even is and who gets to decide.
So right after the chaos of Dada,
Surrealism took that fascination with the irrational and turned it inward. Artists like Salvador Dali and René Magritte were really inspired by thinkers like Sigmund Freud, and they wanted to unlock the power of the unconscious mind. So they started painting the world of dreams, creating these bizarre, unsettling, and totally unforgettable images, like melting clocks or men in bowler hats raining down from the sky.
None of these movements just popped up out of nowhere. You can see here how each one was basically a reaction to whatever came right before it, a true chain reaction of rebellion. Fauvism's color experiments helped spark Cubism's experiments with form, which influenced Futurism, which was then totally rejected by Dada, which then helped pave the way for Surrealism, and eventually Abstract Expressionism. So, after all that, where did this constant rebellion actually lead? What's the lasting impact of all these movements that tried to tear down the old world to build something totally new? Well, after another devastating world war, the center of the art world actually shifted from Europe to New York City. And there, artists like Jackson Pollock took the emotional freedom of Fauvism and mixed it with the unconscious exploration of Surrealism and then just exploded it onto these massive canvases. With Abstract Expressionism, the physical act of painting, the drips, the splashes, the energy, that became the art. It was pure feeling, right there on the canvas.
So when you look back at all these wildly different movements, from crazy colors to fractured shapes, from total nonsense to bizarre dreams, what's the one thing that connects them all? It really comes down to these three things: a constant hunger for innovation, a fearless spirit of experimentation, and maybe most importantly, the incredible courage it takes to challenge what everyone else just accepts as normal.
And that spirit, it is far from dead. The legacy of the avant-garde isn't just something stuck in museums. It's in the music you listen to, the movies you watch, the design that's all around us. Really, anyone who pushes boundaries today and asks, what if, is channeling that exact same rebellious, forward-thinking energy.
And that really brings us to the end of our story. From wild beasts to melting clocks, the avant-garde is a story about artists who just dared to see the world differently. And it leaves us with one last thing to think about. Out of this whole century of rebellion, which one of these wild ideas speaks to you the most? Which movement makes you want to stop and look just a little bit closer?